I feel so validated. I went to the eye doctor yesterday for the first time in like 5 years. Granted, I can't see a thing without my readers, but I just was like, I'm old. That's had the deal. She confirmed. She was like, just do what you need. Your eyes are fine. But I had a moment of like, I probably should have had an eye doctor confirm that my reading is a problem only because of my age. And she finally did.
Yay.
Wait, so you've not always worn reader?
No, I have 20/20 vision still. But my reading just, I mean, everyone's does around 40, they say. It's just, I don't know why.
Yeah. I had the LASIK done 15 years ago, and they were saying, like, I might have to have it redone again. It only lasts for so long. Like you were saying, as you get older, now that I'm 43, your eyes change.
Good luck, guys.
Welcome to Just for Moms. I'm Charlotte.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Callie.
We are regular moms talking about regular stuff
Like aging,
parenthood,
work-life balance,
and figuring out what's for dinner again.
A no judgment zone to talk, laugh,
and maybe cry about all the things women think about on a daily basis.
All right. Well, you know what? Here we are, guys. We are in episode 18. That is such a big number, huh?
Yeah, we're legal adults now.
Oh, we are. Wow.
Our podcast can buy cigarettes.
Is that still the age?
Isn't it?
I don't know.
Is it not 21? I don't know. It's been a while since
I know.
Oh, right? Maybe. I thought it was like cigarettes and go to war.
And vote.
At 18. No?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I clearly wasn't a smoker.
We can't rent a car for another 2 months, but that's fine.
No.
Yeah, that's fine. So this week, I am here with Megan and Callie and Charlotte, like I always am. I want to start off our conversation with a little chat about lying and the lies that we tell our children to make our lives easier. Because I saw something shared the other day on Upworthy, and it was just people submitting the lies that they tell their kids. So do you have any good lies that you've ever told your children?
So my kids are still little, so I can get away with like my children still think that restaurants and stores close at dinner time because everyone has to go home and have dinner and go to bed. I'm not going to be able to hold on to that one too much longer, but I mean, that's still, I'm able to get away with like the little fibs still. Okay. The playground closes at nap time,
Yes.
I mean, I lie about anytime we're in the car and the kids are doing something that's distracting. I say, if I get pulled over, I'm going to be arrested, and then you won't have a mom because I'll be in jail. So that usually works. Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Megan, do you lie to your children?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like I did the park thing, like Callie, the snack bar, is the snack bar still open? No, it's closed. Now it's when I get text items to order from my teenagers, like, get me this, get me that for this, can you order me this? Sometimes there's a please and a thank you, which is wonderful. And I'm like, oh, it's sold out, because like I'll get to it a few days later and it's not sold out. I just don't want to, order it. I don't let's save a little bit here and there. So I feel like with the texts I get from my teenagers of items they would like ordered for their wardrobe. And I have gotten caught where it's like, no, it's like they have it in that size. I'm like, oh, they must have done a restock.
Oh, well, that's good. Charlotte, you look like you don't lie. You just tell your children.
I lie in the moment. I was trying to think about any recurring lies that I have versus just the like day to day. And the only recurring ones that I can think of are like kind of a lie, but they're also just kind of true. So all of the devices that my kids have. So for the little ones, they have those Kindle Fires. And then the 2 or 3 older ones, when they're 13, they get a phone. But we have like security measures for all of those. Like the Kindle, there's parent accounts, so you can control what they can and can't do. Same with their iPhones. And I've always just sort of said, I manage enough in this house. And so that's been my husband's arena. Now listen. Could I figure out how to get in and navigate all of these things? Yes. In fact, I do know how to do the Amazon, but every time they're like, can you give me more app time? If there's a holiday on a Tuesday, can you give me more app time? Can you do, my answer is always, that's your dad. I don't know. Call your dad. I don't know how to do it. Call your dad. Same with chess. I sort of know how to play chess, but not enough that it's fun. And so I don't know how to play chess either.
Yes.
I like
I
that.
love it. My husband and I just had this discussion because one of my children tells little fibs, like little white lies, like nothing that's alarming. And I remember growing up telling like little fibs, like, about like, oh yeah, I only had one piece of chocolate when I had two, like nothing life altering. But Michael is like honest, Abe. Like if Michael tells you something, it is the truth. Like this man does not lie. Like will not like. I remember once coming home from the grocery store and there was like one extra, like literally like a block of cheese, and he will go back to the grocery store and be like, I did not pay for this block of cheese. So it is so alarming to him that this child fibs a little bit. And I remember like, and I was like, yeah, but I don't know. So we kind of had this whole discussion about fibbing, like
He's
the
like, we have a
difference between.
sociopath in the house.
Yeah, he was like, should we be so concerned they're going to grow up and,
It's very
so,
honest man. I like that, Callie.
very honest. Yes. If he tells you something, it's the truth.
I think for kids, it's a funny stage where they're just trying to like make sense of the world around them. So it's like, what can I get away with? What can I?
Yeah.
Like, there's a power that comes from it. It's like, I remember in those child psychology classes I took being like, that's sort of an hilarious stage of development when your
Yeah.
brain is just figuring out the world.
That is my toddler right now. She's a real trip. So moving on to mom fails. I'm just going to start off an easy one that I feel like you can all relate to. We were traveling and came home and somehow all of the toothbrushes have been lost. So
Where do they go?
I don't know. And my husband was yelling last night, where is Arbor's toothbrush? I'm like, I don't know. Why is this my problem? Maybe you lost it.
Yeah, there's 4 other, well, I'll let Arbor off the hook. There's 3 other people that have seen or possibly responsible for this.
Give him yours, Brandon.
Yeah.
Let
No.
Arbor use yours.
Yeah. Yeah. Take control. Charlotte, do you have a mom fail this week?
Kind of. I mean, I just can't keep up with all these kids. One of my kids came down the other day with a pair of shorts that were so tight, and it wasn't like that was the preference. They were so tight, and I was like, whoa, those look a little small. And they're like, yeah, they're the only ones I have left. I don't have any other shorts left. And, I was like, you need to just give me a heads up. Like, we can do something about this. But I fear that this one child has no clothing for the upcoming warm weather. So I need to get in there and figure it out.
Callie or Megan?
Callie, you could go.
I don't think I wrote one. I mean, not that I haven't had. I think the excess of mom fails I've had in the last week just have compounded over that my brain can't think of one. So go ahead, Megan.
So when we were just traveling for spring break, I usually check us in for the flight. And I was, probably doing 8 million things to get us out of the house for the flight. So I said to Joe, can you just do it? Bad. Yeah. I don't want a husband bash, but so we had seats when we booked the flight. And then when you check in, you need to always make sure they're there. And so the 5 of us were in all different spots of the airplane, and he didn't, and I never looked at it because I just figured we were checked in. So when we go to get on the plane and I'm like, where are we all sitting? Like, and Nico's like, I want to sit with dad. And he's showing me the tickets and I'm like, wait, so none of us are together? Like, I wish I knew because I would have like gone to the front desk or like, tried to figure this out. So, I mean, someone did move. So at least Nico, because he needs someone to sit next to. So that worked out. Thank God the man, because, technically they don't have to move.
No.
I know.
So, yeah. So, and then the girls are older. They're teenagers. It was fine. But I was just like.
It's one of those moments when you're like, I on your behalf, I would take responsibility too. And you just literally said it. But it's also like, I didn't think that we needed to remind another adult to do the thing that seems very, very obvious and common sense. But those moments make me the craziest when it's like, did I ask him if he had confirmed the seats? No.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were there, but apparently.
And the best part also was the TSA pre-check number was in for the kids and I, and not him either. But when you do the reservation, but again, you always have to check this stuff, even because, the systems, all this. So then we had to go in 2 different lines. I was like, I'm not waiting in that line. I went with the kids. I'm not taking my shoes off and taking all my, I mean, I feel like a lot of other wives would have, I'll wait with you, honey, not me.
No.
Nuh-uh.
I would have been gone.
Unless it
Mm-mm.
was maybe just the two of us traveling. Not with children, though.
No,
Absolutely
no.
not.
He's like, I
Definitely
hope
not.
I make it. I'm like, yeah, I hope you make it too.
See you there.
Oh, that cracks me up. Yeah, there's not many things that, no offense to my husband, that I'll let him be in charge of. Not even, this isn't, we're just on this path. I have to go down it. We're getting the car and we're all going to Cape Cod with my mom and my mother-in-law recently. And I am in the third row with my daughter.
You
And
don't
then
get
the row
car
in front
sick?
of me,
Yeah.
no, I don't have a
Yeah.
choice. The row in front of me is my mother, my middle child, and my toddler. And then the two people in the front seat is my mother-in-law and my husband. Now, riddle me this. Why is the person in the third row who can't even hear or speak to anyone being asked to put in the GPS where to go? So I'm like, listen, just type in whatever into your phone, plug your phone in. And he's driving through the neighborhood while he's trying to do this. I'm like, just pull over the car and let's just figure it out. We are 45 minutes into this trip. And he's like, I don't understand how it's not going to take us that long and blah, 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 blah. And where are we going? And why are we going this way? Caitlin, do you know why? Do you remember driving this way last time we went here? And I'm like, excuse me, can you turn the music down? I have no idea what you're saying. Give me your phone. He typed in,
Oh God.
like, we were going to Ocean Edge in Brewster, Mass. And he typed in Ocean Edge and it was taking us to Cape Nettic in Maine. Right, Cape Nettix in Maine.
I mean, at least it wasn't New Jersey. You were
I
sort
was
of headed
the
north-ish.
opposite,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, the
Yes.
opposite direction.
So we only lost, believe it or not, like 20 minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes of the trip.
Yeah.
But I was kind of just in disbelief. Like,
Yeah.
do I need to be the co-pilot? Why didn't the co-pilot notice that you had the wrong address in there?
We drove down to DC. We've driven down, dare I say, dozens of times. I looked up at one point, we hadn't even gone over the GW bridge, and we were not where we were meant to be. And I was like, I didn't think I needed to be navigating to get us to the GW bridge. Like, this is a human that grew up in Connecticut. That GW bridge has probably been hundreds of times. At some point between here and the GW bridge, just the wrong turn. I don't think it added a ton, but I was like, is this where we're at?
You
Like,
just don't pay attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
we digress.
we digress. Yeah. I'm glad I got that off my
What
chest.
I love
though.
is, like, you know how we had that whole discussion about MapQuest and how we used to actually use
Yeah.
real maps. And, like, there's been, I mean, an age-old joke about the wife with the husband and the map and the whatever. I think that women of generations past would be happy to know that even with GPS in our
Yeah,
phone,
on
they
the
still
phone,
cannot
yeah.
figure it out.
Still
It's
going to the
still-
wrong place.
Yeah. Mhm.
But not us. Not us. Not us four.
Nope. I know where I'm going from the third row. Not even driving. So this month we are talking, I do feel like an audience member mentioned it in passing at some point. I think she asked something, if we could talk a little bit about baby blues. I could be making this up, but May is Mental Health Month, and there's a whole week that's already passed once you're listening to this. And mental health, as you know, is like one of my just platforms that I stand on. And so when I said, like, maybe we could talk about this, Callie said, okay, cool, but what is PMH, right? Is that what you said to me? What is PMH? So
Yeah,
I'm
you sent me a link. You sent me a link to the website for
to this website, and PMH
Yes.
was on there. And I myself was like, I don't know, personal mental history. So let me look this up. And I learned a lot. So first, let me say that Maternal Mental Health Month is actually more, it's more about perinatal mental health, and perinatal versus postpartum are two different things, because perinatal includes the time period for which that you are pregnant and all the way up to 2 years after you have the baby, where postpartum is just, I think we all kind of think postpartum is this, I don't know, however many months after you have a child. But it's important to understand that a lot of mental health issues that end up coming up after someone gives birth to a child may have started during pregnancy, and you just don't know. You're in this big hormonal rush of life. And so I said, I realized I wanted to look up some statistics and see how common this is, because I was like, everyone has some sort of baby blues, but baby blues are much different than actual anxiety or depression, or even some of the scarier things that can unfortunately happen after a woman has a child. So the World Health Organization states that 10% of pregnant women and 13% of women who have just given birth experience a mental disorder, primarily depression, which that's a big number, and it's frightening. And what's even more frightening is in developing countries, this is even higher. So 15.6% during pregnancy and 19.8% after childbirth. I went as far to see, there are many reasons why a lot of these go misdiagnosed. And Charlotte, I think you had mentioned this too. You were going to kind of talk about this a little bit, but in terms of just mental health services. But I want to say it was 50%. I somehow deleted the statistics. 50% of women are not diagnosed with any type of mental health disorder after having a child, because it's either missed. There's a stigma that they're too ashamed to bring it up to someone, so they don't talk about it. And sometimes it just trickles away and they forget about it. And unless you have another child and go through it again, it's just something happened. There were those 5 months where I felt awful after a baby, and then it just goes away. But the mission of Maternal Mental Health Month this month is storytelling and raising awareness. So I just wanted to talk about it on the show today, hear your experiences with it, and encourage anyone listening to not be quiet if you don't feel right at any point during pregnancy or after childbirth, because it's more common than you think.
Did you guys find that and I'm already fuzzy, this is, my youngest is almost 10. Do you find that your healthcare providers, and I guess it would be a tag team of possibly a pediatrician because you see them more often, and your OBGYN, was that front of mind? Do you feel like your doctors were asking you anything other than, how do you feel? Or, I find that question can be so unbelievably overwhelming. Thankfully, I didn't identify with anything too scary after, I had a week of just the hormone highs and the physical fatigue, where I always was a little tender, but I don't have anything that I think triggered postpartum depression or anything. But I also, if I had, the most overwhelming question for me as a human and as a new mom was, how are you? I don't I don't know how to answer that.
The pediatrician, my last pregnancy, this is the first postpartum period where the pediatrician, every single appointment that I went to for my child, there was a questionnaire for the child and a questionnaire for the mother, all the way up until her first birthday. And I was going often, and I know that her pediatrician very, very well, because my other two daughters see her too. And so it got to the point, even if it was a sick visit, she didn't say, how are you doing? She would say, okay, how's the baby's appetite? And is mom eating? How is baby sleeping? And is mom sleeping? Kind of in this weird, get me talk kind of way. And there were times when I did open up and cried to her about one thing or another. And then she would ask, are you talking to anybody else? And I would, tell her, I'll talk more about my experience later, but that's the first time in I mean, my oldest is 11, that a pediatrician said, by the way, let's do you a questionnaire for you too. Yeah. Callie, does your pediatrician ask?
We have a questionnaire that we answer, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what happens if your answers come back not good. I remember with the only child that I experienced any postpartum issues with was with my first. And I think in retrospect, I probably suffered from some postpartum anxiety. And so I do remember answering some of those questions. It's a scale of 1 to 3. And I don't know, 1 is good and 3 is not. So I do remember answering some of them skewed, but it obviously was not enough that it triggered them to be this is a problem. I remember talking to a friend who had postpartum depression with her second, and she had answered them all is not that great. And then they basically were just okay, well, you should probably see somebody about that. You know what I mean? So I think some of it also just depends on the pediatrician that you have too. It's like, so they have you answer these questions, which is great. I do think there's a lot more awareness about it. I know that my husband was spoken to at every time I was discharged from the hospital. Um, but then then sometimes it's still kind of put back on you to be like, okay, you're not in a place like especially early postpartum, like I couldn't even get to like a dentist, let alone like now I'm trying to, I need to find somebody for. So I think that's the kind of problem I have with it right now. I think that there is a lot of awareness about it, and I do think people are talking about it. I do, like I said, I think that husbands are a lot more aware about it because they speak to them in hospitals. But even that one I think is tricky. Especially with my husband, like one, he's equally sleep deprived, and there's like this new baby in his home too, and he doesn't know what's hormone. I mean, like, I don't know that we should be putting that on a husband. He might be able to be like, she's acting a little different, but there's so many other variables happening there that a medical provider or maybe somebody else who is, in other countries, they have like doulas that come in and visit you postpartum. That is a woman who could be like, this is abnormal postpartum because, behavior. Because also a husband is told, she's going to act different. She might be a little weepy. Like, he's not a medical person, and now he's supposed to know if this is a problem or not. So I think that's what I worry about with it, is that there's not a lot of, we talk about it a lot, but I don't know if there's a lot of action that happens when a woman is actually in distress and in need.
Yeah, I want to say that our questionnaire that we filled out would go into the My Chart, and it was supposed to link with my OBGYN,
Mine
but
doesn't.
I don't know any more than that because I'm just different than other. I was already talking to somebody, and I was already talking to my OBGYN. Other women, you go in there and you are tired and you do fill out this sliding scale about how are you feeling today? Well, there's a difference between the baby blues and an actual mental health disorder because of the time period for how long it goes. And at what point are women just accepting, maybe this is my new normal? Maybe I'm just not happy. Maybe I was never meant to be a mom, and they don't realize that they're actually just, you can be helped. This isn't a permanent way that you're going to think and feel. It can be reversed. It can, there's a cure in some sense. But what's sad is, Callie, like you said, there's a lot of factors that, limited access to services, or what if your insurance doesn't cover it, but also what mom wants to go online and try to look up someone to talk to. I mean, that just sounds
You
awful.
barely have time to do your dishes.
Yeah.
And now,
No,
like,
it should
oh, you
just
need
be
to go
part
find.
it should just be part of the system, because you're not making choices or motivating to do much of anything. Certainly, like, I don't know, finding a new therapist on a good day is Herculean, much less when you're trying to figure out like nursing and all of the other things. I guess we were talking about it when we were talking about bodies after baby, how no one spoke to me. I mean, first of all, no one spoke to my husband about the baby blues. I mean, it was literally don't shake the baby and good luck. And so, I mean, I hear your point, Callie, but he also wouldn't have.
Even known.
No.
Yeah.
And I certainly, I don't know that I would have known if it got to be bad. I mean, the times that I've gone into therapy when I was little, it was often because friends were like, you seem really down, like more down than normal. I mean, now I've gotten better about it, but when I was younger, I didn't think anything was that off. So I don't know, it bums me out that like physical postpartum care and mental, it should just be part of the system.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like with Ava and Gianna, 15 and 13, almost here, I don't remember anyone really talking to me about it at all. With Nico, a little. And now, like, Caitlin, we've become friends. So I see what you went through. And I'm hoping that today it's better for moms. But like, I don't remember anyone really like talking to me or asking me about me. It was
No.
just, I felt like it was just about the baby, and like my husband's, he's a builder. So he didn't work for a corporate job. So he had no time off. So it was like, here I came home with my first baby, and it was like, I did have like my mom who came to visit here and there, but she has her own life, so it was sort of like figure it out, and he went back to work. I don't know, maybe like a day or two after we got home. I mean, I'm sure I could have asked him to stay home if I really needed that extra help, but I don't know. Is it even helpful? You
Well, it's
know?
not, yeah, it's not helpful if I mean, my husband didn't know what to do with me. So after Arbor, my therapist, I was like, I'll take a little maternity leave. I don't need to talk to you, but if I feel like I need to talk to you, I'll contact you. Well, 8 weeks in, I remember our first appointment, and she said, "Oh my gosh, congratulations. Let me see her. How you doing?" And I was just emotionless. And
Yeah.
she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No." Like, I could start crying
Yeah.
thinking about it now, because she was like, "Why didn't you call me?" And I'm like, "Because it was actually harder. It was harder
Yeah.
to admit
Yes.
Yeah.
how dark of a place I was in, and like the scary things that I was thinking that I didn't want to tell anybody. And I
I
don't
mean,
want
that's the
any,
worst part about depression is that you're
Yeah.
just
yeah.
paralyzed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kept getting sick. So I was like on all these antibiotics. And then I remember I was quarantined in my room. Everyone had COVID and they wouldn't let me out of my bedroom. And
Oh my
so
God, is this when you had COVID too, Caitlin?
I didn't know. I didn't know this was this was
Okay,
years
different.
later. Yeah, but
This was,
Okay.
my
before.
girls had it,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Your baby can't be around it, so you need to be in your room for 5 days." Like,
Cool.
it was
Yeah.
bad. It was
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. And like you said, Caitlin, that doctor probably should have followed up with you versus you,
She
Oh,
texted
she
me.
did? Okay.
I
Okay.
can't
Good.
talk
Good.
badly about her. She was
Okay.
checking in
Okay.
all the time. I was sending pictures, but she didn't know, because I didn't want to talk about it.
Sure.
You also kind
Yeah.
of don't want to rip off a Band-Aid and look at a wound. You're like, I'm just going to keep covering this up because it's going to pass. And
Well, it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Therapy and like it's
Yeah.
hard. And so if you're already exhausted, you're like, maybe tomorrow will be better. I'm just gonna watch
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy and like
yeah,
feed this baby and hope for the
Yeah.
best.
yeah.
Yeah. It's harder to talk about it. It really
Yes.
is. Yeah.
Hmm.
Then it's harder just to say nothing and just act like yeah.
So my sister was just saying, my nephew's is 4, about to be 4, and she was saying that in her personal therapy journey, they were like, "Were you ever diagnosed with anything?" And she's like, "I've had anxiety, I have a little depression here and there." And they're like, "No, but after you had the baby, let's talk about this." She's still dealing with postpartum anxiety. It's technically not postpartum because she's so far out, but it was never dealt with and addressed while she was pregnant, after she was pregnant, and no one was asking her anything. It was just like, "You're paranoid your baby's sick. You're paranoid you're sick. It'll pass." And
Mhm.
so when a mental health disorder goes untreated, it's like it's not good.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's exacerbated even more in this realm of maternal mental health because the entire world has told us that this is going to be the most joyful time of our lives. And God forbid you have a different opinion about that. You have the added pressure of like, what is wrong with me that I feel differently? Why am I broken? Everyone's coming to your house and like, the baby's so beautiful. You look like everyone around you is telling you that things are fine. And, contrary to popular belief, a whole bunch of people telling you everything is okay isn't how it works. But I think it just adds to the pressure of it all.
Yeah, I feel like and if you have a friend who has a baby at the same time as you and they're not going through any kind of scary stuff, it makes you hide what you're feeling even more, because then you feel ashamed, like, I actually can't stand to hear the baby cry. I can't stand it. And I want to leave my house. And if you were to say that to someone who's like, "I love everything my baby does," then you kind of feel like, "Well, I'm a piece of shit," but you're not. You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Callie, I feel like you said you felt like you maybe had experienced something after your first, but not your other 3.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I experienced some postpartum anxiety after my first. And I just I remember a moment of I don't think that I ever relaxed until he was almost a year old. I remember once we started putting him down for bed at night, he was 3 months old and he wasn't going to bed with us. And Michael's like, "How about we watch a movie?" And I just remember my heart racing, I couldn't catch a breath, I was short of breath, because the idea of sitting down and doing nothing just felt. I mean, they just killed. The baby, when Miles was born, it was there was tons of nursing problems. I was pumping, I was breastfeeding, I was formula. I mean, there were bottles. I was just always on all of the time. I had to wake him up every 2 hours to eat. So I think that it pushed me into that. And I mean, for me, I think luckily it was probably a mix of once I finally stopped breastfeeding and then like my hormones like eventually tapered off. But I remember, I mean, I just was worried about everything. I never felt like I could turn myself off. I never felt like I could relax. Like I could not even sit and watch a TV show and be for that to be enjoyable at all.
It sucks. I mean,
Yeah.
think what's kind of good thing is that you do forget about it. I mean, but I always wonder if if people have it after their first, do you have something else happen again after your second and third? And all of my experiences were different. My first, I didn't have any type of anxiety until I weaned my first. And that was just the crash of all the hormones. And then we were done. And then my
Yeah.
second, it was the same thing. But my third, I did not see it coming either. I was just like, and here we are in the darkness. And there's so many resources out there. While I was researching statistics for this, just website after website, but it's overwhelming. There's so much. And if you're not feeling great and you're like, okay, let me go take a survey and see if I need help. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. And who do you call? You want to call your OBGYN and tell them I think something's wrong with me, but then they're going to say, so it's tricky. It's very, very tricky. And
Yeah, no, I think it's hard because it's like sort of like even like you mentioned, it's one of those things where it's like it's almost like you have to self-advocate for yourself in a time where it's almost impossible to self-advocate for yourself. And then you don't know what is normal and what's just, I mean, we know that our hormones are crashing right after giving birth. We know that they're changing with breastfeeding. We know now that there's like, isn't there typically a crash again after like 4 months? When is like, there's like 3 months, it's like a common time that postpartum depression can come around again. And then again, when you wean, like we know all of this, but I think, if you're in it and now you're trying to like self-diagnose yourself, I think that's just it's a tricky thing. And I think it's good. I think that I mean, based on what Charlotte and Megan, what you have said, based on the experiences that I've had having children just in the last few years, I do think there's more awareness. Like, I think they do a better job of making sure the people around us are like kind of at least looking out for stuff. But I still don't know that, again, like I said at the beginning, that there's enough action, that's actually taking place. It's just like this kind of chat and we're talking about it. And I could go into a whole spiel about how I think that postpartum care needs to be fixed in this country, but
Well,
we don't need to go down that road, maybe.
But I think a lot of it falls into the realm of mental health, and we do a shitty job of dealing with mental health in our insurance system to begin with. So anyone who's had to have therapy, what a what a job that is to get any of it covered by insurance. And when you're dealing with mental health, there's very rarely like a right or a wrong, a black or a white. Like it is a nuance. And so I think all of us go into pregnancy and postpartum and we know that it's going to be a roller coaster. We know that this is going to be messy and all over the place and erratic. And I think it's very easy because we're tired and out of it to be like, well, this is just the deal. I signed up for it. And it's hard, to your point about self-diagnosing, like the difference between just going through a hard time and having it be, a medical disorder is how much it's affecting your day to day. And that's a nuance. You know what I mean? Like the human condition has anxiety. All of us have anxiety. That doesn't mean we have an anxiety disorder because most of us can move through the world and it doesn't get in the way. But when you can't watch TV because your heart is racing and you're so worried about, what your child is doing in the back room, that's very different than every new parent on the planet that is worried that their kid's going to stop breathing the first time they put them to sleep in the crib alone, and like that. It's easy to talk yourself out of it because of everything we've just said. It's hard. Nobody wants to go to therapy. You don't want to leave the house. Like there's no incentive to do it.
No, there isn't. And I feel like any OB/GYN should be you should be calling the mom. I mean, my OB did call me, I remember 6 weeks after. No,
6 weeks.
2 weeks after and 6 weeks after. But then that was it. Like
that was just for Arbor though, right?
No, my OB, my doctor, to call and check in on me. But like,
yeah.
Maybe
no, but she's saying only postpartum with Arbor, or
postpartum with
postpartum with
Arbor.
It wasn't the first two. Yeah. And like, who's to say really this bubble survey is going to do it? I feel like, you have to like visually speak to someone and they can like see it, like your fear and what you're going through versus just filling out something. And who's to say too, some moms are filling it out and lying because they're embarrassed, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
I'm hoping to have a guest who is going to be an actual medical professional whose brain I can pick on this, because I would like some insight into how people could how this could change. I mean, even if it's starting at the community level, what communities can do for women, because I think that that's important. And I mean, starting from small and then growing, because you're not going to change an entire country.
Well, it also makes me sad, and then I know we need to move on. Like, we're 4 white women in Connecticut that are talking about this. Like, God forbid you're a person in another part of the country, a woman of color. Like, all of this is diagnosed on such a lower degree. And it's heartbreaking to think about how many women have children in this country. And, it's not even questioned.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and
And I have,
I'm thinking of younger women.
yeah. And to be honest with you too, sometimes you see these stories on the news of these mothers. Like I know it's been through the news where they're going through depression and they've drowned their children or done certain things. And I have to be honest, like I see them and I'm just like, it's horrible. I'm like, wow, like there is a point where like after you have these kids that you just feel crazy, and your hormones are all over the place. I mean, it's nuts.
Who's beeping?
I think there may be someone in my driveway delivering something for the neighbor. Sorry.
I just want to make sure your house isn't on fire.
Do you need to leave?
Yeah.
Are we good?
I know. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, beeping and dogs. Better now. Sorry.
What
Yeah,
was
I
it?
don't. Our neighbors, our houses are all here on top of us. They were getting some. The trucks, the Amazon trucks make like animal noises and like, like all this weird things now. So it's like,
So true.
yeah, that was just a delivery truck.
Oh,
It's aggressive beeping for that.
that is. Like if you had a sleeping baby and wake it up, I'd go out there with a broom and just wail.
Yeah. Do you ever like? It sounds like a dead raccoon.
I know
song
you're talking
when
about
they
the
back
Amazon one.
up.
Yeah.
You're like, what does that sound?
Oh. Today on the Just for Moms podcast, we're honored to welcome a truly powerful voice in the world of maternal mental health, Katie Crenshaw. Katie is a best-selling author, public speaker, and mental health advocate who has been courageously sharing her own journey through perinatal and postpartum depression to help break the stigma surrounding maternal mental health. She's here with us today not only as a fellow mom, but also as a passionate ambassador for the Blue Dot Project, a national campaign dedicated to raising awareness and supporting those navigating mental health challenges during and after pregnancy. So, hi, Katie. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm really excited you're here. So, I guess I should allow you to explain what the Blue Dot and PSI is before we continue. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the blue dot is the symbol for perinatal mental health survivorship, support, and solidarity. The goal is to raise awareness for perinatal mental health disorders, kind of proliferate the blue dot as a symbol of solidarity and support, and fight stigma and shame, of course. So our mission is always to just kind of create solidarity, tell stories, and make it more well-known as a symbol, kind of like the pink ribbon is for breast cancer.
I love that. For anybody that has never heard your story before, I highly recommend you take a peek into Katie's everything, her website, her social media. Her platform is just so empowering for women on all different levels, not just maternal mental health, but motherhood and children. And she is fantastic. But can you look back and think about the first time you started talking about your own perinatal mental health experience, just everything? Was there a specific moment or event that pushed you to seek help or helped you realize that you actually weren't alone?
Yeah, actually, it's why I started my entire blog and content creation. I have 3 children, and my oldest is 15. I was really young. I was 23 when I had him. And looking back, for sure had like postpartum issues and perinatal issues mentally, but didn't really have enough knowledge to know what was going on back then, or even if there was help available. And like I suffered from some kind of anxiety and depression like most of my life. And at that point, I had never been treated, never seen a therapist or anything. And I was in healthcare before I was in marketing and content. So I worked in labor and delivery for a long time, and I was a certified doula in addition to that. So I was kind of in that world. I worked in labor and delivery when I got pregnant with my second child 6 years after my first. And I was working night shift, and she was a really difficult baby, kind of like didn't have a plan for how we could make my job keep working. So the best idea was like to stay home. That wasn't my goal in life. Like a lot of people want to do that. I just didn't want to do that, but it made the most sense for our family. And I was like, okay, I need some sort of creative outlet. And at the time, you know, I had been a hobbyist, like blogger and photographer for years, and I decided to just kind of go full force into that. And at that time, my goal was to get some of my writing in the public, like Scary Mommy and Huffington Post and things like that. And then those things kind of happened first. And this was when social media was just starting to get popular, like especially Instagram and things like that. And I realized it was a lot of Pinterest, like picture perfect era. Nobody's really talking about anything hard. And I was like, well, I'm going to talk about it and see if anybody wants to talk about it. So, and I had been remarried at that point and was struggling with maternal mental health stuff. I was medicated at that point. So for my last two pregnancies, I was medicated and getting treatment. And so I just started talking about that stuff, and people immediately latched on. It was getting shared in Facebook groups and things. And I was like, okay, people want to talk about this. So I just started opening up more about it. And then that just kind of evolved.
It was empowering to find someone who is openly talking about their experience with their mental health issues, especially related to being a woman and a mother, because, you know, it can be very lonely. And before social media was really much of anything, you weren't talking to anybody about it because it's just, you weren't going to stop somebody in the grocery store and be like, hey.
Yeah, it's scary, especially because of the cultural like group mom shaming. Everybody's afraid to be judged as a mother at our core. It's scary. And also the resources are limited for moms. Like it's hard to get treatment with your baby in tow. There are some like prototype facilities around the country that are popping up, not fast enough, but that have like nurseries and childcare, which that's cool because one of the biggest fears moms have is getting separated from their babies, especially when they're like nursing. Like, how am I going to get help and still get to stay with my baby? And then there's the fear of like people calling the police, people, you know, people who aren't educated. And that's why the Blue Dot Project is creating Blue Dot Safe Spot, which is going to hopefully bridge the gap where like medical offices, support staff, any provider that deals with new moms will have like specific perinatal mental health training so that they have like the appropriate knowledge and support to give patients, and they'll have like resources. And so it's not like, whoa, I've never heard of this and I'm freaked out, let me call CPS or whatever. So yeah, so hopefully a lot of good things are going to happen in that regard, and people will be more apt to show up for help.
I think that's very encouraging. What role does community, online or in person, play in a mom's mental health journey?
I think everything. I mean, I'm sure there's science out there that can be referenced more specifically, but they're just talking about your experience. I mean, online is kind of where we mostly are a lot of the time, so that makes sense. But even when you're just like with your neighborhood friends or at church or whatever, like just sharing with anybody is important. Even if, I mean, I've had people come to me years down the road and be like, I didn't have anything going on back then, but when I did, I remembered that you did. And so I wanted to reach out. And so telling your story, even if it feels like nobody's listening, somebody's listening and they're remembering who they can reach out to and who's safe and who won't judge them. So it's endlessly important. I always wonder like how our moms managed without like seeing, I mean, because for me personally, the first thing I want to see online if I'm worried about something in any category is, are other people dealing with it? Like,
Yeah.
like who else is going through this? So at least I'm not alone, because feeling isolated can just be the worst part.
Yeah, and I think it helps to see something that almost says it's okay. It's okay that you're feeling this way, and here's what you can do about it, instead of, just that you go and Google your random symptom and the worst case possible pops up, and there's statistics are low about how many people have experienced this, which is why I think the Blue Dot Project is so cool, because I personally was looking through the different programs that they offer and the events, and I was just blown away with how much is out there. And, it makes you want to talk about it and bring it to your community and share it with your friends. Aside from the Blue Dot Project, like, what other improvements do you think could be made to postpartum care, or just perinatal care for women in general?
Oh gosh, so many. I think we desperately need more facilities, especially for like intensive outpatient and inpatient care for new moms where they can have their babies with them, or there is some level of childcare so that that doesn't keep them from getting help. I think obviously more awareness, the more awareness, the better. I personally believe that we should have like discharge protocol in the hospital. As much as we talk about car seat safety, we should talk about warning signs for perinatal mental health issues, and for partners to have. I think the Blue Dot Safe Spot is like a huge first step in kind of trying to unify some of the messaging and protocol for people who have, like high touch with perinatal moms and things like that. So that to begin with, but I think it's all going to start with sharing our stories and making it more commonplace to talk about how common these things are, and we should be talking about them just as much as we talk about any of the other complications of the perinatal period.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
If a new mom is listening right now and feeling lost or scared, what would you want her to hear?
You're not alone. Obviously, number one thing, 1 in 5 women will be affected by perinatal mood, or, well, I guess we're just kind of calling them perinatal mental health disorders. They are sometimes called perinatal mood and anxiety disorders in some places. It's super common. It's the most common complication of pregnancy and postpartum. And there is help, which can be hard to find. And sometimes just knowing that there is help, and if you can get one step toward someone that can find you help, like the Blue Dot Project, you can get connected to all the right help. And postpartum.net, the bluedotproject.org, we're all the same family, and we have like tons of support groups. There's multiple programs, multiple ways to get involved, tons of resources and data. So yeah, if you want to get in the right direction, I guess, like start with postpartum.net, and there's probably everything you can find. They also have a phone number that you can call. There's also the Maternal Mental Health Hotline, and things like that. So there is help. It is common, and it is temporary, and it won't last forever. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat with me. And I love what you're doing for mothers and for the world. And I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anyways, yeah, we need to talk about something happy now. Let's talk about peaks and pits. I hope someone has something good to talk about.
I have a pit, but
Okay.
it's not guys, I cannot get rid of the pantry moths in our house. They come back, like I get rid of them and they always sneak back in. And I don't know if this is because now we live in the woods more than we ever have. Just about everything in our pantry is in some glass canister, and I sort of know the routine. But we came back from spring break and I opened the pantry and it was like a cloud. They had found their way into one thing of like dog bones, and they must be like fruit flies. They must multiply real fast. But have you ever had them?
No.
They're literally little moths. They're slow, so you can like squish them, but you just everywhere you look, you see them and they get into certain things, and then if they're really bad, you'll get like the little like larva, which is not great. But for the most part, it's just like moths, but
They're like little
it's
white ones?
no, they're little brown moths, but
Oh.
I remember growing up once we had them like in our flour. Don't they like love
yes.
to get into like flour?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and food.
Yeah, like little
Yeah.
weevils and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah. So
Oh.
that's my pit.
Oh, we don't have that. I mean, I have a pet too. You guys know I could like trick Arbor into thinking that stink bugs were Jerry's and they're her friend. she does not feel the same about ants. Ants, it is ant season in the house, and it might as well be a scorpion because she runs and screams. And I told her that, they're harmless and I'm going to set traps and get rid of them, but no. So
Could you get her an ant farm? Like lean into it? Would she be interested in that?
Oh, that's a
Ant
good
farms are
idea.
cool.
no, I feel like she'd just be
It would
even
make
more
it worse.
terrified that it was in a container in her
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
She
Sure.
just
Or
wants
if they
them all
got
dead.
out. I had a fear of snakes. I still a little bit.
Oh.
They're just not right to me. But I worked at a pet store and I was like, this will make it better because I'll be around them. And I had to like, nope, they're the worst. It made me hate
They're
them
the worst.
even more. Yeah. So
Yeah, not a fan.
No.
And then what was that? The Indiana Jones? Remember that?
Oh, that scene. No. Oh,
Mm-mm.
yes, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
Callie or Megan, do you have a peek?
I have a peek.
Yeah, go ahead, Callie. You go first.
Okay. I'm going to change mine because I have sort of a bug related one since we're going on a
Oh,
bug
look at us.
tangent. Yeah, with like a theme. So my son is he has a fear of like bees and wasps. He's always been a little afraid of them. Pretty sure it comes from my husband because he also is a little afraid of them, and I think it's because he's never been stung. So like to him,
The worst.
like when you've never experienced it. So Miles has always been a little bit afraid of them, but he got stung by a wasp it'll be almost 2 summers ago now, which is like the worst thing to be stung by.
Horrible.
So I thought it was going to like exasperate the fear. It didn't, but it's still there. He's a little bit nervous about them. And now that it's spring, some of the bees and wasps are coming out again. And there was one on the front porch and he was really kind of getting nervous about it. And Michael was doing lawn work and Miles loves to help him do the lawn work, but he was nervous about this wasp. And I basically was just like, it's that time of year. The bugs are going to come out again. And you can stay inside if you're nervous about it, or, you can say, I'm going to go outside. And, if you try to just avoid it the best you can. And I said, but it happens. And, you may get stung again. Like, I can't tell you you're not going to get stung. And it does. It hurts. You've experienced it. I'm like, but things hurt. And, it's not going to, it happens. Like, I was just trying to whatever be about it. And I watched him kind of like go over back and forth. He really wanted to go outside and help Michael. And finally he did. He like went out and he went, like it was near the shed, and he went to the shed and Michael had asked him to get a shovel, and he went to the shed and he opened the shed and he got the shovel and he went back, and it was just, he was so proud of himself, and he kind of like, I don't know, they got over the fear, but it was very cool to kind of watch him go through it.
Aw.
Yeah.
I forgot you said it was a peak, and so I was braced the whole time for
Oh, no.
and then he got stung.
And I'm sure it'll happen. I feel like because he's scared, he's going to be the child that gets stung. But I'm trying to play it off as like, it probably might. Everyone gets stung and it hurts, just like if you get a cut when you're running and you fall on your knees, but you still run and it could happen. It's just a risk of life.
I've never been stung either.
Really?
But I'm
So are
not,
you so scared of them?
No, because
Michael's
I know
like
that they don't like when you're scared. So I'm always trying to be like very calm. Actually, no, if it's a hornet, I'm good. I'm running and screaming. But if it's a bee, I'm just.
Yeah. Michael, it's like the wasps. The wasps
You're
and the hornets.
supposed to do that, right? Aren't you not supposed to like flap at them and move, right?
Yes.
I don't know.
But like wasps and hornets are just mean. They'll like just like attack you just to be.
Yeah.
Have you seen the videos of the people that'll go up to the hornet nest with the thing of it's a gas or whatever, and they just like
the smoke?
Yeah.
Ugh, no thanks. No.
What do you have, Megan? Peak or a pit?
I have a peak. It's Easter just passed here, and my son did not wear joggers for the whole day on Easter Sunday. Dress pants.
Oh,
it happens maybe like 2 to 3 times a year, but he wore the proper attire to church. And no joggers, which, like I said, it's either joggers or shorts. I know Charlotte experiences the athleisure wear in her home as well. So, yeah, that's my peak. Dress pants for my son for like, I don't know, what was it, 8 hours?
Yeah.
Listen, small victories. A win's a win.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. Hopefully you didn't hear just now sounded like my toddler was going to come through the ceiling. As always, we love when you leave us reviews. We like when you send us topic requests and all that good stuff. Listen to us everywhere you listen to podcasts, and have a great day.
Just ending on
so distracted by the booming upstairs.
Well, the beeps at my house.
No, could you hear it just now?
The things are planned, the